In this video, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to create a discussion board, a journal, and a blog. And the reason why I'm combining these elements together is because they are very similar. And essentially, you create them twice because when you create a discussion board, a journal, or a blog, when you put it in the weekly modules, you're actually creating a link to the discussion board, the journal, or the blog pages. So it can sometimes be confusing, so I'm going to walk you through each one individually. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to week 2, and I'm going to navigate to the week 2 activities folder. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to tools, and I'm going to select discussion board. And you have an option if you've already created the discussion board prompt by going to course tools under course management and selecting discussion board, you'll see that discussion board forum here. But since I don't have them already created, I'm going to go ahead and select create new forum. And this is under week 2. I've already created the test assignment, so I'm going to say 2.2 since it's a second graded item in the folder, and we'll say test discussion. Now, since we are actually creating the forum first when we select that option, I'm going to show you what this looks like. So here is the area where I can type the prompt. So I'm just going to say type prompt. And this is where you'll say, okay, here is the availability. Yes, I'm making it available. And you have the option to select the display after and display until. Now, I normally don't recommend having the display until because discussion forums and my recommendation for journals and blogs are also the same. So I'll go ahead and include that here. But the whole purpose of discussion forums is to be able to go back and look at the discussions that have taken place, because that's actually where most of the learning comes from. That is your class discussion. And so we just want to make sure that students have access to that at all times. Now, not necessarily saying that we need to accept their assignments. That'll definitely be at your discretion, but just having access to that key element of the course is really good for the students. So we'll just go ahead and put the display after. So again, we're just going to pretend like this is a Fall 1 assignment. Now, you can have a couple options for the forum settings. And if a due date is set, submissions are accepted after this date but are marked late. And that, again, will be totally up to you. So the standard view, basically, once that display after date has been met, students can see the posts that are in the discussion forum. However, you can also make it where participants must create a thread, so they must respond to your discussion board prompt in order to see other posts in the forum. And that sometimes is recommended, especially if you want students to come up with their own definition for something or submit their own post. That generally, I don't encourage that because the discussion forums are really supposed to engage students in conversations about your course content. But you can do that if you feel like the responses, the initial posts are going to be very similar. Now, if you're wanting students just to post like for an introduction, you don't have to grade it. But just like the assignments, you can go ahead and put the points possible. So I'm going to select 20. I'm going to take it back to standard view. You can set your due date. Now, this right here needs grading. So for example, if you're not going to grade your students' discussion forum until after the end of the week, after the due date, you can put 2 or 3, and it really depends on how many replies they need to have to their classmates' post. So for example, if they need to have an initial post and then 2 responses to their classmates' post, you might want to put that to 3, and then that way your needs grading won't be overloaded. So we're going to set the due date like we're going to pretend this is a week 1 assignment. So I'm going to put that at Sunday, and then we'll put the end of the day. Now, just like with the assignments, you can add rubrics if you have one created. And so you can select a rubric if it's already been created in your Course Tools rubrics folder. You can create it, or you can create from existing. There's already a discussion board rubric, so I'm just going to go ahead and select it. And then as you notice, it's going to assign the maximum points from the rubric. And again, just like with the assignments, you'll want to go over here if you want your students to view the rubric prior to their to the due date. You can do that with the scores, without the scores, or after the assignment's been graded. And we typically just go ahead and select yes with the rubric scores. Now you can allow students to subscribe to the forum, and so they'll get an email if you allow that, and that's just totally up to you. You can include a body of posts in the email, or just include a link to the post. And then I normally recommend that you allow students to edit their published posts, just in case, like maybe they didn't check their spelling, or there was a formatting error after they press submit. But I generally don't recommend that you allow them to delete their post, because sometimes they may be off the mark, and if somebody questions or says, hey, you know, John, that's not what I found, this is what I read, it actually encourages and increases the engagement. So don't let them, I mean, my recommendation is not to let them delete their posts, but edit their published post. And then you could allow them to tag. I don't have a lot of faculty that do that, but if you want to, you can do that. Now, depending on the level of the course, you can allow members to rate posts, and this just allows basically your students to say, hey, John had a really good post, I'm going to give him 5 out of 5 stars or whatever. But I don't have any faculty that use that option as well. So this is where you're basically creating it twice. So now we've already created that 2.2. Now we're going to link to that specific form in week 2. Now, normally what I do, if it's a big 4 or big prompt, I'll copy and paste it. But since it wasn't, I'm just going to put test discussion, and then track the number of views, and then the display after, since we're pretending this is a week 1 assignment, I'll go ahead and put that as week 1. And then after this page refreshes, there is the test discussion. And so you'll notice here, it's not available. It's not going to be available till after August 20th for students. But since you'll have instructor privileges, it'll be, you can click on it. So we'll go ahead and go back to that forum. We'll go to the discussion board. Now up here, as you can see, it actually takes to the discussion board. It doesn't take you back to the week that we were in. So we'll just go ahead and click back to week 2. And we'll verify that, yep, it's still there. So for the same thing for journals, and I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. So there are not currently any journals, so we would select create new journal. And I'm going to put this as 2.3 test journal, since that's the 3rd item in that week 2. And I'm just going to paste something here. Now, if you are going to copy and paste from the journal prompt to the link for the journal or the discussion board or the blog, I highly recommend to go up here to HTML. And I don't really understand what any of this means, but I know that it copies really well, and it just makes it, the formatting, look good. So I'll copy that. And then, yes, we want to make sure it's available. Again, the display after, we'll just say this is a fall one, 8 a.m. And again, for the journals, I don't do the display after. Now, if you are going to have one journal that they keep going on, you can do monthly indexing. But usually the faculty I work with, they want to see the indexing on a weekly basis. And since, you know, we have 7-week courses, now, in the journal, you don't necessarily have the option to allow them only to edit. So I say edit and delete. And usually the journal is more of a reflective item. So normally this isn't selected. If you wanted to allow your students to read each other's journals, you can select that. But I've not had any faculty that do that. So again, if you just want them to reflect on their learning, you don't have to grade it. But if you do, again, I'm going to go ahead and select the rubric because it makes it easier for grading. And then it's going to assign the point values. Go here, select the due date. I'll say the 26th, end of the day, since we're pretending this is a week one. Press submit. And now we have the option, the journal's been created. Now we need to link to that journal within week 2. So I'm going to show you what this looks like without, well, I'll put that in, even though it's got all that verbiage in it for the coding. But I want you to see here, and then I'll fix it. So when you copy and paste without going into that HTML, once the page refreshes, well, normally there's like a white background. So what I do, that's why I paste the HTML code, because if you just paste from the content area to the editor there, and it keeps the formatting. So the last thing I'm going to show you is a blog, and it's very similar to the other two, but I just want to show each one individual. We're going to create a new blog. So if this is a graded assignment, and since this is the 4th item, this will be 2.4 test blog. And I'm going to copy and paste that HTML just because it's already there. Now I'm actually going to copy this. I want to show you what it looks like. So you can, a lot of faculty will use the blog as more of a contributing assignment for a way for students to share ideas. So you can allow students to see the other students' blog posts, and you'll do that. And you can allow anonymous entries. If you just want it individual, you can do that as well. Totally up to you. Again, you can index it monthly or weekly. Most go with the weekly, and we'll allow the editing. You know, this is the same way as it is for the discussion boards and the journals. So I'm just going to walk through that quickly. To assign the max value, we want to be able to see the rubric. We'll put the week 1 due date as the 26th at the end of the day. And I'm going to press submit. Here's the test blog. Now we've got to link it in week 2. And when I do this and I just paste from what I copied, it looks okay here. It's thinking. There it goes. Now, this is what I was speaking of. So that's why I copy and paste the HTML code. This is what it looks like when I do the HTML code, and this is what it looks like when you don't. So just a little tip, if you're going to be copying and pasting, when you create anything really in Blackboard, I would recommend, if you've already put it in there, copy the HTML code. So that is how you create the discussion boards, the journals, and the blogs. They're very similar, but I wanted to walk through that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a great day.